Okay, so we're starting here at example 2, which we did yesterday. So before we finish, back it up. Everybody with me? Because as we did example 2, in one class, somebody asked me after we got our answer here, hopefully that's the answer we got in here too. Hopefully, it should be. Then they asked me for wrote up here, right here, just has the because they were confused, they're a little bit worried that they wouldn't know what to do. So we have seen again. This just represents the fact that it could be any function, right? It doesn't matter what function it is, it's some function, just like you've seen before. And then if we wanted to make it quadratic, it would look like this. So notice how these aren't that different. That this function, since it could be anything, I could put an absolute value here, I could have put a sign of whatever. It's the same thing over and over again that you already know. Does that make sense? So don't try and make it more difficult because it's trig. I know the graph's new, but everything you really do already know. And sometimes you need to remind yourself of that so you're not trying to make things more difficult. All right. I'm not sure, I also question myself what I said every class period and those sorts of things. So, example 3, I said this in every class, but on here we got that the period is pi and the amplitude is 2. Because we had not shifted left or right yet, if this is where I'm starting, the amplitude is totally 2. But what would A equal? Would A equal 2? Negative 2. Because this is what the period looks like, but this is reflected, so A is actually negative 2. Okay? Because the amplitude and we have reflection in the x-axis. Okay? Makes sense? Positive because whether I'm measuring down, this was an argument for last period, or measuring up, it doesn't matter because they're all the same. They're all 2 because it's a distance. But the A value in my equation would be negative because it's up. All right, good deal. All right, so now let's jump to the last. I know some of you still have like PTSD from Monday from this little something that looks like this, but this one's a little bit different. It says the graph of H and its dashed midline for 2 full cycles is shown. They give us our points. No scale is indicated. No axes are presented, but a graph still works like a graph. Our x-axis or our independent axis is still horizontal. Y-axis still vertical. They give us coordinates, so let's put 16, G5, J is 8, K is at 11, 11. P is at 14, 16. Okay. And it says function H can be written in this form right here. So they give us this form so that we know A, B, C, and D, because you make translations or transformations rather, that your translation first learn quadratics. A lot of teachers teach it that way, which is fine. I've seen it PQRS. I don't know why, but letters could be anything. What matters is where they are. So that's why they give you this, so you know exactly what they're talking about here. All right, so when I'm looking for A, A is related to the amplitude. Is that a vertical or a horizontal distance? Vertical. So am I looking at the Y values or the X values? The Y values. So just make, those little questions you should ask yourself here. So what is the amplitude then? 5. Because I'm looking at the Y value going from 11 to 16. You could label this over here. This is 16, 11, 6. Like that. So this is 5. Okay? We okay with that? Yes. Right. So you could, because we don't really know where we're, quote, starting, then now, if it was -5, then that would change what our C would possibly be. So basically, those two have to match up. But since it doesn't say anything about a reflection, and we don't really have a context to put this in, like it's not a real world type of situation, then I could go either way. My suggestion would be don't make it complicated for yourself. But yes. All right. So then B. B is related to what? What do I have to find to be able to figure B out? The period. Okay. What is the period a vertical or horizontal distance I'm looking for? Horizontal. What is the period here? This is a sine function, right? But to figure out the period, I could start here and here. Even though that looks like cosine, it doesn't matter. The period's the period, and it is 12, right? I'm going from 2 to 14. So that means I would take 2 pi divided by 12, and what does that give me? All right, let's jump to D. We're going to come back to C. What is D equal to? 11. Good, because it's your midline there. Now, and the fact that this has sine and not cosine, I'm not starting there. And the fact that we didn't reflect anything, I know that my parent function for sine looks like this. So I'm either starting here or I'm starting here. You with me on that? So, and there's an infinite amount of equations I could write for this, because I could shift it back, I could shift it forward, I could shift it forward even more. Like there's an infinite amount of them. All right, but we're only going to just make our lives as simple as possible here. Now I know what this ordered pair is. I don't know what this one is, but I can figure it out. What would this x value be? -1. Good. Because remember, everything is spaced evenly. So if I'm going from 2 on the x-axis, I'm going from 2 to 5 to 8 to 11 to 14. They're all 3 apart, right? So that makes that one -1. -1, and then my y value would be what? 11. Okay, good. So in order to get this graph, if I know I start here before I shift, I can either shift to the left 1, or I can shift to the right, how much? If I'm starting here, I have shifted to so we can say that the y-axis would be kind of right there. Maybe, whatever. I could shift to the left 1, or I could shift to the right 11 and start there. Does that make sense? Now here's where we got to get our C values correct. And here's what I suggest you do, because so that we don't get the negatives backwards for this. This is what they have in here, right? If I shift to the left 1, then what's in my parentheses would be T, is it plus or -1? Plus 1. That's what shows that we move to the left, right? That has not changed. X is a liar, right? So it's T and theta, whatever that is. So then based on what is my C value? +1. If this says T plus C, this is a 1. Okay? Or, is on this graph here that they have for me, I have this one right here. I move to the right, 11. To the right, UB. And either one would be fine. You wouldn't have to put both. Okay? What questions do you have? Are we good? I know some of those graphs with the multiple choice, little table. You can keep stuff handy, but you're going to work as a group. Now, I made sure if you're in a table of 5 that you had 3 of them so you could all see it. And if you're in a group of 4, you had 2 so everybody can see it. But I want you to work as a whole because you're going to need to discuss things. So grab those, grab a marker. If you don't have enough markers, let me know. But I want you to start working on these. And then we will discuss them, okay? And I will come around and break up fights if I need to, which I totally needed to do last period. All right, let's look what's to do. So we have, we're starting with two signs. Actually, they're all signs. So the parent sign, like, then the other thing that I would do is go ahead and draw. I know it's drawn in, but I can't really see it. So just by doing that, is there anything I can eliminate? A, right? The other thing is, now the A value is, well, the amplitude is the same for all of them. The A value might be negative on some of them. The period's the same. Everything else is the same. So it's not that big of a deal up here, but also make sure on these that you are paying attention to the scale so that you don't mess up on something like that, okay? Because it's counting by twos, it's not counting by ones on this particular question. We good on that? All right, so then the other thing is this. We want to make sure we know if we're going left or right, because that's really the only difference between these and a reflection. One thing that might help you, that I saw some people do last period, is that if this is my parent function, before I shift left or right, I'm going to draw that under here, because this one, without any still fairly new, might be helpful to you. Okay, so do you understand? Because these are negative, so they're not necessarily all here, but that's kind of the parent function plus. I'm going to go through and I'm going to look at each one of them. All right, so if this is sine, I'm starting here. I'm shifting to the right pi halves. When I shift to the right pi halves, I'm touching my graph. That's at least something. That means I don't eliminate it now. But since there's not a reflection, it's supposed to look like this. That's not what's happening. So that's not my answer. So then I move on to this one. I'm here. I'm starting here. I move to the right 3 pi halves, which puts me here. Then this, I think I kind of like this one. Okay, you see how that works? You cannot look at this all at once. This is how I do them too. I've been doing this stuff forever. Okay, then this one, I'm going to double check it since we're not super popular. I'm here, still starting here. I'm going to move to the right 2 pi. I'm not to the graphs. I don't need to worry about anything else. Answer C. Now I can look at your other two. And then we'll come. Oops. Okay. So let's check this out. Since I drew in my midline, what can I eliminate right now? A. Okay. Isn't it nice? Now, there's other things we want to look at, and we want to be able to, because at this point, what makes more sense to you, the equations or the graphs? Neither one of them. Here's what I think, and what I've kind of observed is that you kind of get the graphs and you kind of get the equations, but then when we're matching them up, that's where the problem comes in. And really, C is more of the problem than anything, right? We can match up all the rest. The C is what makes things a little bit weird. So we want to look at everything but C first. That's why I think midline, to me, that's the first thing I do. And then now that I have that, I can ignore the +1 on the rest of them. But then they all do have the same amplitude. I have a reflection there, and they all have the same period. If they didn't, I would try and eliminate some things from that at that point. But what I am going to do before I go any farther is I'm going to draw my parent function. So cosine looks like this, right? Parent function of sine is a negative sign, so it would look like so we get all this That brain's a little bit better. All right, so if it is cosine, okay, so I'm checking my cosine graph. I'm going to start up from the midline, whatever the amplitude is, and I've already decided that those are all right. So I'm going to start right here, move to the right pi halves, and I'm right here. And then since I'm right here, then like this, I kind of like B. Okay? Let's check the rest of them, because some of you didn't like B and you thought the other ones were correct. So let's talk about why they're not so that we can make sure we understand this. I'm going to start here for sine. Then I'm going to move to the right pi halves. I end up right there, not even touching my graph. Okay? So don't like that one. What? Oh, okay. This one? Okay. Shh. Yeah, this one right here. Okay. So I'm going to do this one more time. All right, so that's okay. Because they weren't paying attention. I'm just kidding. All right, so I'm starting here because I'm at the midline on the y-axis. When I move to the right pi halves, I end up right here, not even touching my graph. That's why it doesn't work. Okay? Now, somebody else did kind of end up right here at one of them. That's not what's happening because I know I'm either starting up at 4 or on the midline. I shouldn't be in the middle anywhere. So then I'm going to look at D. I start here again. I move to the right pi. I'm not even touching my graph. So I don't like D either. This is the only one that works. Okay? We okay on that one? All right. Good deal. Maybe. Okay. Ruin my midline. Based on my midline, can I eliminate anything? No. All right. So I got some reflections, but the amplitudes are all the same. I got the C values. I'll worry about those last. But look what is different here. All of the B's are not the same. What does the B relate to? Like, what do I have to find to figure out B? The period. Okay. So what I want to find divided by the period. Now these all, well, no, there's a sine and a cosine, but it doesn't even matter if I figured that part out yet, because to figure out the period, I can start here, and that doesn't guarantee that my answer is sine, but I can get the period that way. What's the period? 4. Period is 4. Period is 4. When I simplify that, I get pi halves. Can I eliminate anything now? Yes. What can I eliminate? B. Okay. We okay on that so far? All right. So now I'm going to get with the reflection now. I have to overthink there. Since this is an upside down cosine, it would look something like I shifted left and right. All right. So I'm going to start beginning about even once we figure out what we think the answer is. So I'm going to start here, which means I would start here. This one doesn't move left or right. And that looks like sine, but it's supposed to go up from there, and this one goes down. So I like that one. If this was a negative, it would work. If this was a negative, it would be a reflection down. But from here, I go up first, and I go down first. So that's a reflection of this. I don't like A. Ask me. Okay. No, it's okay. I know sometimes it's a processing face, and sometimes it's a what the heck did you just say face, and I can't always tell. All right, so here I start here again, but I'm supposed to go to which direction? The right. I'm going to go to the right 2. I end up right. Then which is what I'm. And since this is the last thing I'm checking, I like that. Okay, but let's D. Maybe I shouldn't circle it just yet. So negative cosine. Right here. Not even touching my graph, so the rest is irrelevant. That's my answer. Okay. So you see how to process through it step by step. Leave C to the last because it is because if you can eliminate everything else, it's for you to look at. because it's easier to start at 0? Well, plus, why did you choose -5? Okay. So the question is, why did I start at 0 and not at -5? Because we are basing everything off the parent function. And then we shift down 1, but I figured that out, so I didn't worry about it. You do everything from the parent function, you always start at 0, then you don't have to overthink it. Okay, so always start on the y-axis. Then all you have to decide is, am I starting at the y-axis on the midline, or am I starting up or down? You start up or down for cosine, you start on the midline for sine, every time. Okay, does that help? Okay, that's a good question. What else you got? Okay, all right, so then erase what you got, please. I gotta pause this thing.